Information shared on the following program is for general information purposes only. It does not constitute legal, tax, investment, or other advice, nor is it intended to recommend any particular investments, products, or financial instruments. Always seek advice from your financial advisor, attorney, or accountant with regard to investment, legal, or tax questions.
Welcome to the only show in the country dedicated to helping savers worry less about money, the Worry-Free Retirement, with your host, nationally recognized retirement specialist and six-time author and fiduciary, Tony Walker.
Webster's defines detail as extended treatment of or attention to items, a part of a whole or a part considered or requiring to be considered separately from the whole. And as we talk about details in the financial world, especially when attempting to create a worry-free retirement for savers, as the old saying goes, the devil is truly in the details. These much-needed details that go into one's retirement plan, which most savers assume all financial advisors and companies provide, are in many cases non-existent. So how does one know that the person or institution handling one's retirement money is truly paying close attention to all the details that go into a retirement plan, not just when they retire, but all the way through retirement? Well, as you're about to learn, these details, or lack thereof, that one might expect their advisor to possess are actually a sign of how much the advisor or firm handling your money truly respects you and all the work that went into creating this money in the first place. You see, in working and meeting in person with thousands of savers over these past 40 years, here's what I've come to realize. Savers assume and expect that the people handling their life savings are handling the details behind the scenes required to keep them worry-free in retirement. Apparently, this is often not the case. So how do we at Tony Walker Financial stand out from the rest of the financial world? Well, of course, it's all in the details, so let's get started. Well, welcome, folks, to the Worry-Free Retirement. And yes, I am that little man in the sweater vest, retirement planning specialist and fiduciary, Tony Walker. And before we get into the meat of our subject today, let me introduce in the Worry-Free Retirement Studios, America's favorite financial sidekick, Mr. Aaron Orender, along with Louisville, Kentucky's most laid-back graphics artist, Mr. Derek Hudson. And not only are those two roaming the studios making sure this happens, come on in here. That's right, folks. Once again, I've got my favorite son-in-law, fellow fiduciary, Mr. Trey Juergens. Again, good morning, and thank you for being on.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
You are so welcome. And again, folks, we've started a little bit of a new format. Trey is helping outline a lot of these shows, and I think this was one of those you really wanted to cover. But before we get into that, real quick, some housekeeping chores. I am so excited that our book, Live Well, Die Broke, that I'm very fond of, by the way, and has a lot of details in the process we use, but we now have an audio version, and you've been helping with this. This is pretty cool. But the audio version, folks, if you want to download it for free, just go to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. That's TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Again, the audio version of Live Well, Die Broke is absolutely free. Trey, you're meeting with more and more people up here. What is the consensus if people do mention they've read that book? What do people tend to respond to in terms of their reaction to it?
It's neat because they get just a real deep dive into a scary thing, into your brain. It's the philosophies behind everything you really do in our organization, but it's kind of that philosophy that ties all savers together.
And I think most of them, it's probably for the first time they've really seem like they're reading from somebody who knows what they're doing, but also gives them permission to use and enjoy their money.
Exactly right.
And we're always talking about these live well, die broke moments. I love it when people occasionally come in and go, well, I had one of those moments. I took my kids to Disney World, or I did this or did that. I'm thinking, good for you. That's what this is all about. So, okay, in the essence of time, as we like to say, the details, Trey, that we go through and what you're seeing now. And sometimes I think even other advisors, occasionally we get some pretty interesting remarks from clients and prospective clients who advisors kind of get honest about what we do. But tell the folks the details we go into and how, I think a lot of people don't realize how much time and effort we spend to make sure we get things right for our clients.
Right. So rewinding back to what you said, all these other advisors, I think the term that came to mind for me was imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. All these copycats and all these different people trying to say that they do what we do. There's so many more people saying that they're retirement planning specialists these days because they're following the money. That's who's retiring, who has that money. So in thinking about that, that's what today's topic came from, was the attention to detail is the sincerest form of respect. So
I love it. Yeah.
By providing these plans and these final binders that I get to deliver to these clients, it is so much respect that we have for their money, for their life savings, really, that we make sure we put that attention to detail into the plan.
And, it's not just money. You gave a great example of the movie industry, and especially covering topics like, World War II and storming the beaches of Normandy. Give an example of the praise sought for the movie Saving Private Ryan and kind of go through that in the detail they went through.
So when we were talking about this whole topic, I was trying to find some examples, and one of the best was in film. And Hollywood likes to have some creative liberties a lot of the time, but in Spielberg's depiction of D-Day, the historian Dan Snow actually went on to say that there's veterans that will say, instead of trying to describe it, just go watch Saving Private Ryan. So to say that there's so much attention to detail to make it that historically accurate, covering something so, traumatic and so historically important, the attention to detail was his sign of being respectful to those veterans.
Yeah, that is really cool. You talk about movies and war movies in particular. I know, folks, you probably heard me say, not any of my claim to fame, but my wife's uncle was Hal Moore, who Mel Gibson played in the movies We Were Soldiers. I did get to go down and watch them rename Fort Benning to Fort Moore. That was pretty cool.
Welcome again to Fort Moore, Georgia, home of the Manure Center of Excellence.
But it was so funny. And I remember Hal, when they first did the movie and wrote the book We Were Soldiers. Anyway, I was talking to him, and I said, well, what was it like on the movie set? And he said, it was really cool. They got my feedback, and I would tell them about the battle scene and what happened here. And they started doing a couple of things on the set, and he's like, that's not how it happened. And he kept kind of interrupting the director. Wait a minute, that's not how it happened. And he said, finally, the director looked at me and said, Hal, this is not the History Channel. This is Hollywood. But back to your point, though, I have not really thought about the detail we put in and why we spend so much time. And I hire so much staff, and we do go above and beyond just the kind of stuff we just take for granted that we do.
Yeah, I get the privilege to deliver a lot of these final binders. We call it the delivery binder. It's got all the contracts. It's got folders for future statements. It's got our conversation starter, how to talk to your beneficiaries about who we are and how we can help them when they pass. And showing that is just, it allows us to kind of give them something that's buttoned up and wrapped up.
I love it. So, folks, if you're looking for somebody that can provide the devil in the details and you want somebody that's going to take the time to make sure you understand what you're doing before you start investing money somewhere, we're here to help at TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Just log on, hit that Let's Get Started, or give us a call anytime at 877-499-9255. Now, when we return, I'm going to do a deep dive on a Tony in the Trenches that came in recently about Roth conversions and the details you better be aware of before you convert that tax-infested IRA over to a Roth. Stay tuned, folks. We'll be right back.
Following individuals are uncompensated clients at the time of filming. Their opinions expressed were provided to Worry-Free Productions for use as an advertisement by Tony Walker Financial. Please refer to Form CRS and Form ADV Part 2A Disclosure Brochure for information regarding the advisory services offered by Tony Walker Financial.
Our client spotlight today shines brightly on Ron and Diana Foster, and welcome to the studios here at Worry-Free Productions. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Tony.
Tell us a little bit about the process you went through in finding an advisor and the number of years. Actually, you said you've kind of been considering this.
We found you on the television, watched it a couple times, and we found ourselves kind of learning as we go.
What was it about Tony Walker Financial that finally put the decision in your hands to say, let's do this?
Who we talked to before wasn't really a good fit. Coming here, this was our home.
Yeah. Gave us the tools and things to help us understand the process and become comfortable with this choice. And Ron said it best, it was a good fit because we felt like our investment money, our hard-earned dollar, could be put into different buckets that were more secure for us in the future.
Would you describe, if you don't mind, I'm very proud of the staff here, as you know, the feelings you've had in terms of working with the staff and the ease of the staff? Any comments about that so far?
From the time we've walked in the door, everyone here, it was an easy process for us to come in and get to know everybody. And when we left, we talked about it. It was an easy choice to make. We were still getting the tools necessary to understand the process, and that was sent home with us as well. So when we decided this is a good fit, Ron said, this is where I feel comfortable in making sure my money for the future is secure.
Well, good. Well, we're glad to have you on board and look forward, hopefully, to many years of serving your retirement needs. So thank you, Fosters.
Thank you very much, Tony.
You're welcome.
Looking for an advisor you can trust? Schedule your free phone call with Tony at TonyWalkerFinancial.com or call 1-877-499-9255.
And now it's time for Tony in the Trenches.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us here on the Worry-Free Retirement. I've got our next Tony in the Trenches right here, so let's get to it. This TNT comes to us from Dave in Louisville. Tony, I wanted to thank you and your staff for the attention to detail that went into my Roth conversion consideration. I know we had planned on pretty large conversions for this year and next before the laws change, but I'm very thankful we know exactly what we're getting into instead of trying to figure this out alone and getting blindsided by the tax ripple effect.
As our recent Tony in the Trenches reflects, the idea of a Roth conversion can, let me repeat, can have some huge merits and potential tax savings for that saver out there. And as Dave discussed here, we are very thankful that we were able to help him, and we appreciate his kind comments about our tax planning department that ran all of these calculations. Now, before I share the rippling effects of a Roth conversion, there are pros and cons to any financial decision, folks. Let me go over our concerns here and what Dave was concerned about. As you might know, by the end of 2025, the current tax laws, which are some of the lowest in history, will expire. This is a fact. Now, nobody knows what they're going to do, but assuming the worst case scenario, they could go through the roof. Assuming best case scenario, they don't do anything. Middle of the road, what most people think is they're going to go back to the 2017 laws. That's what the law currently says. When they expire, if Congress does nothing, they'll revert back to 2017 laws, which again mean higher taxes. So if you've got a 401k, IRA, TSP, if it's pre-tax, you could have a big problem. So that's why people are talking a lot about Roth conversions. Our job is to test the plan, make sure the conversion's right for you. Well, what are we testing for? Well, let's go through this. We call it the rippling effect, so to speak, of a Roth conversion. So again, don't rush out and do these until you see somebody like Tony Walker Financial. Let's just go through these line item by line item. The first thing is federal income taxes. Folks, you have to understand, if you take a large Roth conversion scenario, maybe you've got several $100,000 and you convert it to a Roth, all of that money has to go on your tax return, and there's a good chance it's going to throw you, I call it throwing you, throw you in a higher tax bracket. Next on the list, state income tax. People forget about this, but pretty much everything in the state of Kentucky and Indiana, that's our viewing audience, state of Kentucky has about a $31,000 exemption. Indiana has none. The majority of this money, we're just going to assume, is going to be taxed anywhere from 3 to 4%. So you had state taxes on top of it. Social Security taxation. People forget about this. Folks, you got to remember, this is included in income. It will affect your Social Security and more than likely cause extra taxes to Social Security. Modified adjusted gross income. Here's a chart. Why do we worry about that? Because it could affect your Medicare premium. So remember, the more income you make, Roth conversion is considered income, it's going to increase the Medicare premium Part B. Capital gains, there is effects on capital gains, although this is an ordinary income situation, but that throws you in a higher bracket. If you have other capital gains, it could actually tax those at a higher rate. RMDs, now it can have a good effect. This does not include RMDs. So if you're 73 or older and want to do a Roth conversion, the Roth conversion is not going to be applied to your RMDs, so there's really kind of double taxation. However, the good news is if you do the Roth conversions before or even after you start your RMDs, this will lower the calculation for future RMDs. And again, we can go over these details and more when we meet. Next, we have market conditions. Sometimes people recommend, and I've done this before, when the market's down or you've got assets that are down, that might be the best time to convert those to a Roth. Remember, if your assets are valued very high, maybe the stock market's up, and you convert those over, all of that's going to be taxable. Then if down the road the market drops back down, you got a tax-free Roth, but you also might have an account that's worth a lot less money. And lastly, remember the 5-year rule. So if you do convert money from a pre-tax to a Roth, remember you have to wait 5 years before you can touch that money. So all important considerations. And what I would say is, if you're worried about future taxes and want to look at a Roth conversion, and if it's a possibility for you, happy to do that, no cost or obligation. Just log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com, click on that Let's Get Started, or call us anytime at 877-499-9255. Having worked in the retirement planning field for 40 years, I know it's not just about how much money you've saved for retirement, but making sure you one day don't run out of money. That's where mailbox money comes in.
Mailbox money!
A reliable, lifelong income, much like the pension plans from the past. If you're interested in turning your 401k into mailbox money, let's talk. Just set up your free 10-minute phone call with myself at TonyWalkerFinancial.com. That's TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Okay, Heather, our theme today is the details that we go through at Tony Walker Financial and how it proves our respect for our clients' money. So kind of take us back in time to when you first started at Tony Walker Financial some 19 years ago, and the emphasis on detail with clients' money.
Oh, sure, Tony. So, when you first hired me, we were really focusing on tax planning. My background's in accounting, and you really wanted somebody to get deep in the weeds as far as taxable events, any kind of tax planning and things of that nature. As our clientele grew, I think you moved to also needing to show them something on paper of what their retirement might look like. It's easy to talk about just, oh yeah, you'll have money in the future. But for clients to see it on paper, it was very impactful. And so what we started to do is develop just Excel spreadsheets and things of that nature. We quickly found out, probably a few years in, that it was going to be very cumbersome, given the growth of our firm, to just be able to do just spreadsheets by hand, essentially. So at that point, we really started looking at you making the considerable investment into some software that was just completely unique to our firm, and we found a developer. We actually had that up and running back in 2014. Can't believe it's actually been 10 years since we've had the software. We've come such a long way. In that, not only did we develop the software that was just vital for our firm, but then we also started growing our planning staff as well. So at that point, we hired Lisa Allerkamp. She learned the software, learned the art of laying out plans, giving your direction and things of that nature. And then, we really focus, our software is not cookie cutter. And I think that is one thing that people need to understand. We're not a boxed software set that you're just plugging in numbers and everybody gets the same output. Ours are very tailored individually to a client's story, their needs, their wants, and for their future retirement. And that's one thing I take a lot of pride in, is that clients, we'll meet with them after the fact on, annual reviews, and they rely so much on those plans and the adaptability of the plans. So it's just been a wonderful tool for us to be able to use with our clientele.
Well said, Heather. Now we're going to go to 3 other parties there at Tony Walker Financial that have a big income on the details that go into these, a big impact, on the details of these income plans. So thank you for your time, and we're going to move on next to Lisa Allerkamp.
We, as the income planning team, are tasked with all the details that are included in the income plan that we work up for our clients. We first meet as a team and go over each case in detail, and then we have several team members that specialize in different areas of the plan. And then it comes full cycle to putting the whole plan together once everything is double checked and all aspects are included.
Thank you very much, Lisa. And now our next contestant on the income planning software and the details is Mr. TJ Reagan in our Bowling Green office. And he's going to share with us what we go through before we initiate things like Roth conversions.
My name's TJ. I'm in part of the income planning department, and I'm also tax certified. Part of my role is to determine when doing Roth conversions, how it's going to affect the overall game plan as far as tax brackets are concerned, to make sure we minimize the tax liability, also how it may affect Medicare premiums down the road. One of the things I'm appreciative of here at Tony Walker is the amount of detail put into the game plan. We make sure to put into consideration all tax liabilities when we're doing things like Roth conversions.
Okay, thank you so much, TJ. And finally, Miss Mandy Houchins, who is very much involved in the income planning department, but mainly from what we call an income audit standpoint, and the details that go into staying on track with our clients and making sure that those income plans stay on track as well.
So the newest process that we have started in is the income plan audits. We are doing annual reviews now to monitor our clients' income plans, game plans, to make sure that they are staying on track. That's something we're very proud of, is staying on top of these for our clients to make sure that that game plan that we have put in place for them stays on track throughout their retirement. My role here at Tony Walker Financial, one of the things I do is I review our clients' original game plans. We do that every year. We make sure that everybody is staying on track. And what we do is we look at that original plan compared to where they are now. We make sure that those disbursements are not off and that we're right on track for where they want to be in retirement. And that is just something new that we have started up, and we are really thinking that this is going to keep our clients enjoying their worry-free retirement.
Welcome back to the Worry-Free Retirement, and I'm very excited to announce that we are working on a series of audiobooks, and the first one we're tackling is Live Well, Die Broke, a book that's been really critically acclaimed by a lot of people out there. Our clients love it. People love the philosophy of can't take it with you and make sure you spend this money before it's too late. But there's many people out there that say, Tony, I don't really like reading books. Can you put it in a podcast form or some other format where I could ride down the road and listen or sit at home? Had one lady that's visually impaired that says, Tony, I can't read books, but I would love to listen to some of these. So here we go. We've almost got this done. In fact, when we get it done, we'll let you know. It'll be on the home side of the website. You'll be able to download the audio book of Live Well, Die Broke free. But what I thought I would do right now to close out the show is give you a little sampling of this. And this is really cool stuff. This is the story, true story, 100% true, of when my dad took me and my brother Marty, back when I was 10 and he was 13, at a little place in Lexington, Kentucky, on Mason Healy Road. It was a par 3 golf course. I think you're going to really enjoy this story. And again, after you're listening to it, if we can be of any help, let us know at TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Hope you enjoy it.
Funny story about my dad following his divorce from Mom. I guess to try to stay connected to me and Marty, Dad would swing by on weekends to take us out for a few hours. You know, to do guy things. Occasionally, he'd take us to my favorite destination in Lexington, a little golf course kind of place that included a cool putt-putt course, a driving range, and a par 3 18-hole course, all in the same area. Now, keep in mind, not only did my parents have very little money, but my dad was now divorced and paying alimony to my mom. During this period of time, he rented a little makeshift apartment located in the basement of a nice couple's home. I remember the first time I walked into his apartment. With only one small window to let some light in, my dad sarcastically said that he felt like a little mole living there. I thought the place was awesome. Anyway, one day we headed over to the golf complex to play some putt-putt, hit some range balls, and then play the par 3 course. If you can picture this, the driving range, which was really not that large, butted right up to the first tee box of the par 3 course. In an effort to keep errant range balls from flying onto the par 3 course, they had erected a fairly tall fence that separated the area where people drove range balls from those who were trying to play golf on the par 3 course. Nevertheless, range balls were always flying over the fence onto the first fairway. After the three of us shared our one bucket of balls, it was off to play the neighboring par 3 course. My dad got out his wallet and purchased a very expensive sleeve of 3 Acushnet brand golf balls which at that time were the priciest balls available. Armed with our 3 golf balls, we proceeded from the pro shop to the first tee box, a short par 3 of only about 100 yards. As we approached the first tee, Dad told Marty to hit first. As my dad and I stood watching Marty take a few practice swings, Dad hollered out, "Come on, Marty, hit the ball." So Marty swung with all his might in hopes of getting it to the green some 100 yards away. But instead of hitting it straight toward the green, Marty's ball quickly made a hard left turn and disappeared over the fence and onto the driving range. Of course, it would have been dangerous to walk around the fence and onto the driving range to retrieve this brand new ball, as there were at least 20 people still on the range that were worse than we were. Balls were flying all over the place. Dad, trying to be patient with Marty, calmly told him to hit another one. Keep in mind, we now only had 2 balls left for 3 golfers. Well, you guessed it. Marty's second shot was worse than the first, as it crossed the fence and disappeared among the hundreds of balls lying on the driving range. Now what? 3 golfers with only 1 ball left? My dad was furious and quickly shouted to me, "Okay, Tony, it's your turn." I've played a lot of competitive sports, but walking up to that little tee box on this day and not thinking about hitting our last ball over that fence was the most pressure I have ever felt. Luckily, I kept it in play, hitting a decent shot some 20 yards or so in front of the green. As we walked off the tee box and proceeded to the green, I was wondering how in the world we were going to play with just 1 ball when suddenly my dad said, "Hey boys, pick up some of those range balls and put them in your pockets." You see, while there was an occasional ball that proceeded from the par 3 onto the driving range, there were a ton of balls that went from the driving range over the fence and onto the first fairway of the par 3 course. Normally, you just walk by the range balls knowing that those were off limits to golfers. But on this day, with only 1 ball left and my dad with no more money to run back into the pro shop to buy more, he would, in Dick Walker style, improvise. As we were picking up range balls and stuffing them into our pockets, Dad grabbed a couple, 1 for him and 1 for Marty, and literally threw them up on the green as if nothing had happened. Still playing the ball I just hit, I chipped it onto the green. Happy to be back in business and armed with plenty of golf balls to last through the round, we walked up to the first green to putt. As the 3 of us were standing over our balls, a little Jeep, the caged-in kind they used back then so the driver could drive around the range and pick up range balls, came flying around the tall fence separating the driving range from the golf course and onto the par 3 course, heading right toward us. As the Jeep slid to a stop just feet from the green, a huge guy who looked to be about 21, picture the late actor John Candy, got out of the Jeep and tugged at his pants to hike them up. He began to walk toward us. My dad looked up as if he'd just noticed him and said in a sarcastic tone, "What you need, Tiger?" The young man responded in a real official-sounding voice. "Excuse me, sir, you wouldn't happen to have any of our range balls, would you?" My father looked at him, looked at us as we stood with our pockets bulging from the range balls inside, then looked back at him and said, "Man, what would we want with a bunch of range balls? We got enough money to buy this place." Then he simply looked down and putted. The young man, confused and dismayed, got in his little Jeep and drove back to the driving range to continue picking up range balls. What's the point of this story, you ask? It's another reminder that it doesn't take a lot of money to build memories. I have a smile on my face whenever I tell that story. It was one of those rare moments with Dad when his carefree attitude toward money became a memory Marty and I still talk about to this day. We were thrilled to be a part of Dad's on-the-fly scheme. To me, that was worth more than a lot of money in the bank.